Hey guys, this is Jessica with Honest Fiction, and I am super excited today for two reasons. One, we're getting our first video up on our YouTube channel, and two, it's a book review of my favorite book I've read this year. What book, you might ask? From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now let's get into it. Honestly, I'm really excited to review this book. So, From Blood and Ash follows Poppy, who is a girl living in Carcedonia. So, the rulers of Carcedonia are known as the Ascended, and they're described as being these godlike people. They're all beautiful, they don't age, they don't get sick, and they live a really long time. And in order to make the Ascended, you have to have the Ascension, which is a ritual that happens in Carcedonia. We don't find out a lot about this ritual. We just know that a maiden is chosen, and on her 19th birthday, she's given over to the gods, and that's what creates the Ascended. So the maiden is Poppy. So what this means is she lives a super isolated life. She has to have a veil covering her face anytime she goes out in public. No one can speak to her except for like her personal guard and a couple other people. And she's just super, super lonely, pretty much. So although she's resigned to this fate, she wants to live a little bit one day. So she gets disguised and goes to the Red Pearl and kind of wants to see like what's happening there. And she has a run-in with a guy named Hawk. So Hawk is the newest member of the Rise Guard. All the girls love him. He's super mysterious and really good at fighting. And they end up having a brief romantic moment. But let me remind you, she's disguised, so he has no idea that he's talking to the maiden right now. So they end up going their separate ways. Hawk goes back to the Rise Guard, she goes back to being the maiden, and then a murder takes place right in front of Poppy. So her personal guard is killed, and Hawk is brought in as her replacement guard, which is good because a lot of stuff is about to go down at this castle. So I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get too much into this. I think it's going to get into spoilers, and I'm just going to move on to the next section. Now I'm going to jump into the characters. I thought all the characters were really well-rounded and believable, even the side characters. So there's a character named Victor who's kind of like her father figure, and you just absolutely fall in love with him. He's like a great parental figure. And then you have Tawny, who's her best friend, but is also her handmaiden as a job. So there's a little complexity there. Like you don't know if like she's really good friends with her or if she's doing it because it's her job. And then there's obviously the main characters, which are Poppy and Hawk. So I absolutely adored Poppy. She's this fierce heroine who we learn's family was attacked when she was younger, and she felt completely helpless, and she strives to never feel helpless again. So she learns how to train, and she just becomes this complete badass. She also has a power that I'm going to get into a little bit later in the spoiler section, but she's absolutely phenomenal. I loved following her story. The other main character is Hawk, and he is this mysterious, handsome member of the Rise Guard. I love everything about Hawk. He completely encourages Poppy to be herself and defend herself. He's the first person that really sees her as a person and not just like the maiden. And I absolutely loved him. He also has a snarky personality, which is a nice contrast to Poppy, and watching their banter back and forth was really entertaining. Overall, I loved all of these characters. But if I had to pick my favorite, it's probably Hawk. I just loved his banter, and I loved that he treated Poppy like a human when no one else did. So if you finish this book, please let me know in the comments who your favorite character is and why. I would love to hear it. Normally I would talk about the magic system here. However, I don't want to get into any spoilers, and I feel like talking about the magic system is going to do that. I jumped into this book with no knowledge about the magic system, and I feel like that really helped my overall enjoyment of the book. So if you want to hear about it, stick around for the spoiler section. Now let's get into the world building. So this is probably the only critique I have about this book. I believe this was Jennifer L. Armentrout's first dive into high fantasy. You can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But it just didn't feel super immersive. Normally when it's a first in a series, there's a lot of info thrown at you. This book didn't have that, which I do appreciate. However, I just didn't feel like it was a really detailed, immersive world. It was fine, it just wasn't spectacular. So the writing style is super accessible. This was my first Jennifer L. Armentrout book, and since finishing it, I've read a few of her other series, and her writing style is just addictive. It's really easy to get through, and it's really entertaining and engaging. And the pacing was great. I think I started this on a Friday afternoon and finished it by Saturday morning. And it's a pretty thick book, but it was just such a fun read that you really get through it quickly. Warning, we are about to get into spoilers, so if you have not read this book yet and don't want to be spoiled, stop watching now. Unless you're a person that's okay with having the story spoiled for you, then you can continue. Okay, going into spoilers. Had I known this book was about a vampire werewolf romance, would not have picked it up. I just feel like that's an oversaturated genre, thank you Twilight, and not something I would really want to read. I've actually picked up a few other vampire romances though since reading this, and they're pretty good. So going into the vampires, Poppy is touted as being this really intelligent girl, and she is throughout most of the book, but this part really bugged me. She lives with these beings that don't age. Okay, there's the ascension. They have all black eyes. All right, and they don't go out during the day. So she finds the body of a girl drained of blood with 2 puncture wounds in her neck and is like, who could have done this? I think we know who could have done it. You live with a bunch of vampires, and I just feel like she could have figured that out a little faster. I mean, I'm not indoctrinated into this whole world, so I understand like she grew up believing the Ascension had these powers, but it just seemed a little obvious and predictable. However, I have read other books that don't have any foreshadowing in the beginning and things just come out of nowhere. So I'd rather a book be a little bit more predictable than have absolutely no foreshadowing. So it's not that big of an issue. It was just kind of something I noticed throughout the book. So now I'm going to talk about the ending of this book. The last sentence is, "We go home to marry Princess." I almost threw the book. I was so excited when I read that. So we found out that Hawk is really Castile, who's actually the Dark One, and he has been sent to pretty much kidnap Poppy and bring her back in exchange for getting his brother back, which I think a few people saw coming. Like I said earlier, it is a little predictable, but still did not see that coming, and I was so excited, and I cannot wait for A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire to come out. By the time this video comes out, it'll probably already be out, and I just can't wait to read it. So there is smut in this book. I think it's done tastefully. As a fan of Sarah J. Maas, I don't think it's worse than any of her books. And if you're really not a fan of that kind of thing, you can just skip those chapters. If I had to describe this book in one phrase, these are the phrases I would use. Slow burn romance, action, vampires, smut, werewolves, hidden magical powers, twists, gods, goddesses, human sacrifice, exciting, stabbing, a lot of stabbing. So Jennifer L. Armentrout has a Facebook group where she posts spoilers and teasers about the upcoming book, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. And it's literally gotten me through the last few months while I've been waiting for the next book to come out. And it's really cool. Jennifer herself is actually the moderator. So she'll go and answer questions, and she kind of has a snarky personality. It's really fun to watch. So the name of the group is From Blood and Ash Spoiler Group, and I'll leave a link to that down below if you guys want to check it out. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I'm so happy our first video is up. If you would like to talk about this book a little bit more, please leave a comment down below. I could talk about this book all day. I love it. Also, if you're someone who's a fan of written reviews, you can check out my written reviews at www.honestfiction.club. All right, well, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel. I post new videos every Tuesday. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.